Hello, wonderful. Welcome everyone to this evening live session on a fascinating topic, that is past life. Is it real? Is there a theory which is backing it up? Is there some evidence around past life? What is it if a 2 years old child start talking about a language talked thousands of years ago and she speaks fluently? What about it if someone tells about another person's detail, even not knowing who he or she was? Is it past life? That's what we are going to investigate into through various research which has been done in the past few years and which produce some compelling evidence that past life exists. So what? There is a change in our approach to life if that completely embraced by entire scientific community and the society. But there are compelling evidences. So many cases are surfacing. We just can't ignore it. Let's delve into this space and see how this is going to span out. How is it going to open up? How is it going to pan out to humanity, and what are the changes that we may see as we are getting into a new dimension in the 21st century. As 20th century we had been to the space of digitization. Probably IT was predominant. Probably, as many of the scientists are predicting, 21st century towards, as we move further and further, we are getting into the domain of consciousness science. Let's look into this aspect and we will see how fascinating is this and how this can probably change our outlook to life, our processes of life, maybe the way we are operating in this life. Let's look at that and let's understand what this can bring us. Let's move into this. Past life has been a kind of a philosophical, rhetorical discussion prior to 19th century or 20th century. But as we entered into 20th century, few of the cases were so compelling that few scientists, especially they are known as the researcher in the domain of parapsychology, they delved into this field. And years of gathering of data based on so much of rigorous research, they found there are compelling evidences of past life. And I am going to share few of them and then we'll look at what is the mechanism behind this. Not many philosophies have narrated on this, but Indian philosophies, especially the Purba Mimamsa school of Vedanta, Vedas, and the Buddhist philosophy, and many others. In fact, most of the Indic religions, they have been talking about this and they have some framework. We'll talk about those frameworks and do they fit into the findings which have been found through all these various cases researched by the scientists. Let's look at that and find out what is the reality. Is it real or is it hyped? So let's look at that. Are you all excited to go for this journey? Find out these evidences of reality of what we call the past life or reincarnation. Are you all excited? I would love to see your comments. If you are excited to go for it, just write excited to learn or excited. Let's all put it in the comments so that will give me a sense that we are all moving together with that excitement, with that inquisitiveness, curiosity to know about this very aspect. Yeah. Just let me know about that. Great, I can see. Wonderful. Brilliant. So let's move on. Let's go in and find out those few extraordinary cases, although there are thousands now. I cannot take all of them, but few of them. Today we are going to look at what exactly are the things which these scientists are looking into. What exactly are those aspects which they are trying to figure out and see various aspects of it, see various nuances of it. Now let's take the case of a very eminent doctor. His name is Dr. Norm Shelley, and Norm Shelley is not just known for this, for his recollection of the past life. He is known for being one of the most prominent figures in the domain of pain management, probably one of the most towering figures that we know in pain management. Dr. Norm Shelley in 1972 was in one of the conferences where he was listening to another speaker, Dr. William Kroger, and as Kroger was little dragging and discussing about certain things, he was little annoyed, and suddenly Kroger took a name, and that completely transformed life of Dr. Norm Shelley. Kroger talked about this. In the last century, a British physician demonstrated that you could operate on patients who were mesmerized. His name was, the person who was talking about this in 19th century was John Ellison. John Ellison was somebody who had said this, and he was working in London on pain management. And this name, as it was told by Kroger, as he mentions, as Dr. Shelley mentions, that he was almost like an iceberg was put through his spine, and he was chilled, feeling that, oh, that's me. It spontaneously came to his mind, that's me. And later on, when they did research, and he had probably many dreams about certain aspects, and so many similarities they could find out, works of Dr. Ellison and Dr. Shelley were so similar, as if Dr. Ellison had left at some point, and from there this man had taken off. And you can see both the pictures, they say there are similarities. Usually they turn it upside down and see some similarities. How do they actually investigate into past life cases? Scientists in many research labs, after doing requisite documentation, because there are many fake claims as well, so what they do, few things. One, there are evidences. They check about what this person knows about the past life, and they go there and try to figure out, check them. And few of them also have birth marks, meaning somebody has been killed in the past life because of some accident or some kind of a fight. There are some bullet has pierced into somebody's body. In the next birth, they find similar birth marks on the body. So that's one of the ways of investigation. People talk about unusual languages which they never have been trained on. This also has been seen in many cases. And they also narrate about detailed geographies of those locations which they have never been to. So there are many such things they gather, and then they sort of say that this is a clear evidence of past life, because nothing else can substantiate the claims that we are seeing, the knowledge that they are sharing with us. So this is one of the compelling cases. This person, being a scientist, naturally was somebody who was a skeptic towards all these things. But later on, he said that it cannot be anything else. I am that fellow. Ellison and me are the same guy. So this was another compelling case, and he was in the US and Ellison being from UK. So naturally, this was a unique case, and many such cases. Just I picked few which are very interesting, very powerful. One more, this is a fairly recent kind of a case. This another interesting facet also I'll bring in here. Very interesting aspect. This name, Purnima Ekanayake, she is from Sri Lanka, and this case was actually internationally studied because of certain very compelling evidences which this girl mentioned. She said that she was earlier a man. There is a change in sex. She was a man, she said. At the age of 3, she started talking about another language. And that language was not known to her anyway. Neither her parents or teachers, nobody knew that language. So this was very intriguing for the entire society around. And she said, I was a man. I was killed while riding a cycle, and I was hit by a speed car which hit him, and he died. He said, he confided that he had 2 wives and he had children. Later on, they tried to find out from her different statements. Where is the location? They could locate that place. They could find out a similar incident where a man was killed because of an accident, and he had two wives, but it was not known to many. Only couple of people that knew that the first wife was neglected and he had the second wife. And many of the other things which she also mentioned, which are very, very interesting. What she mentioned, that almost 20% of children who had past life experiences, they share this, is very, very powerful and interesting. We also can be very inquisitive to know about that. They say that during the birth of the next life and death of the previous life, there is an intermediate period. And during that intermediate period, as they term it as the intermission period, there are very similarities. Many similarities have been noticed in this. Purnima said she floated in semi-darkness, and she also found many others are floating in that space. And after some time, she could see a lot of souls are floating out there, and she could witness the funeral. That life, he was a man, so he could witness the funeral. And she also saw many people like her are floating, as I mentioned. And later on, she could spot a light, and she progressively moved towards this light. And then she came to next realization is when she got this life. So the interesting aspect here is, and this is matching with many of the children. And one more thing which has been noticed, many children in their early age, at around before the age of 5, they have past life memories. And probably one of the theory, many of the past life researchers, they say probably every child has that. And because of certain thing, because of social distractions, because of many of the glitters around, they do not share that. They do not feel like sharing it, and slowly it fades away from their memory. That means everyone has past life memory to certain extent, to certain age. Later on, as we gather more information, that memory is slowly subdued, suppressed. Very powerful, very interesting. That means they say if you can quieten your mind, take it back, you probably can find your past life. And that's what one of the researchers who has been sharing for a long time, that you need not go for a kind of hypnosis or past life regression method. Just by quietening the mind, maybe you can do that. Very powerful, very interesting. Just by going into the deep meditative state, you can sense and get some cues about your past lives. Now, coming to the next very powerful case. Again, this is about Robert Snow. He was a police officer, and Robert Snow had terrible nightmares. Many compelling dreams. Dream is one of the cues, or one of the ways how we can probably get some clue about our past life. That's what many researchers they suggest. Dreams also give us a lot of signals about our past lives. So here, this was a dream case. Robert Snow had multiple dreams, and also this name, Carol Beckwith, which came to his mind multiple times. He started narrating, yes, I am Carol Beckwith, and I don't know what is happening. And then when researchers came into his, to find out what is happening, he was a pretty skeptic. He was initially saying nothing, this is probably some kind of a psychological error in my mind, some kind of problems in my mind. But later on, when they investigated into this, they actually found out this fellow, Carol Beckwith. And not just that, he had almost 28 different aspects of Carol Beckwith, including some of the drawings and paintings this gentleman had done in the past life, which he had mentioned. And almost all of them, as they said, 26 out of 28 were clearly identified and clearly established. So that was a huge kind of a percentage, that out of 28 claims Robert Snow had, about Carol Beckwith, they were in fact could be established. So this is definitely an evidence that he had a past life existence. These are issues which are there. In one of the earlier sessions, we discussed about this case. If you have missed out that, we talked about death, the reality of death, the signs, new signs of death. If you have missed it, definitely we'll put it as you can check out. There'll be I when we see the recording, and you can check on that I, click on that I, and you can definitely go through that as well. Very, very interesting. The signs, new signs of death, that video you can go through. Here, this is a boy, and it is even a more recent case where this boy who had an initial, at the age of 2, he started narrating about battlefield and some complexities about aeroplane and saying, oh, I'm dying, help me, and all those kind of screaming happening, kicking his leg, and it was pretty scary for the parents. I described little more detail in that day, on that day, where James Leininger had a past life story being a pilot and died in the Second World War. And he claimed himself to that pilot, and his name was James Houston. And he said, I am the James III. In fact, this boy said, I am James III. James Leininger is the third James. He said, I was James Houston, and his father was also James something. So he was the third James. That's what he was saying at a very early age. When investigation was done, it was compelling. He could clearly mention about the location where the plane crashed, and when they went back to the documentation of Second World War, it was in fact something which definitely intrigued the entire research team. So many compelling evidence, and the book Soul Survivor, where it has been clearly documented how this young boy could make it, and clearly given evidence that he was having earlier life. He is only about 22 now. This story, I think he was born in 1998-99, and from that time investigation is going on, and this has been investigated by one of the top experts in the domain, Dr. Jim Tucker from the DOPS Division of Perceptual Studies, and he has documented elaborately. So much of documentation has happened. Science is just, that means I'm not saying science, some of the scientific, hardcore, materialistic scientific experts, they're scared to get into this because there are natural challenges. In science, we need empirical evidence. There has to be a theory to back it up. There is no theory to back it up. We have to have multiple replicability of that incident. Very difficult to have because these are very perceptual. One person matches, another person doesn't. But now the number of cases accumulated definitely is something which science has to be serious about, and it's getting serious about it as they are getting into a new dimension of research called the consciousness study, and that's what probably would be a new quite an interesting field of exploration of science in the coming era. Moving on to another case, and this again I had narrated in the previous one of the previous sessions, in that session where we are talking about the new signs of death, where we were also talking about near-death experiences and other outer-body experiences, and part of it was past life existence. Here it was about Shanti Devi, similar to the Purnima case, where Shanti Devi started speaking the dialect from Mathura. She had never been to Mathura. She also gave detailed picture about where she lived in Mathura, how there is another store in front of their shop, and she narrated about the name of her earlier husband, and also she mentioned about the name that she had in the previous life, and she died while giving birth to her son. And Lugdi Devi was the earlier name that she had, and later on so many evidences. There was a commission. In fact, it was one of the most studied cases over a period of more than 50 years. This case was studied. 1935 when she claimed this, or they started investigation. And then till almost when she died in 1986 or 7, till that point in time, series of investigation done, and it was found that her claims was absolutely, you cannot refute them. So they had to accept that this was a clear case of reincarnation. Now there are so many. So this is again something which is compelling, interesting. And here Dr. Ian Stevenson, who later on established DOPS, Division of Perceptual Studies, in the University of Virginia, to get into this unusual, untouchable realm of science. They call it parapsychology, where they talk about reincarnation, they talk about past life existence, they talk about near-death experiences, outer-body experiences, and many of the telekinesis, telepathy, and so many other things. Intuition, all those things they studied. They're studying, in fact. It's been going great guns, so to say. Many other new agencies are also joining in to make this more strong. In fact, a lot of neuroscientists are also getting into this field, especially people like Sam Parnia, who are hardcore scientists. They don't have belief in these things, but they say, yes, there are compelling evidence. We have to see life differently, because consciousness can stay without material. That's one thing. Intelligence can stay without material. The classical science suggests you have to have a matter, body and mind and brain, to give rise to consciousness. On the contrary, they say it can exist without the body, mind and the brain. So that's what a few cases I thought I'll narrate. Now coming back, what is this karma theory, and is it true? Is it now time for us to focus on this to a certain extent? Because this is one of the theories which is there, which talks about the reincarnation concept, the past life aspect, and the whole theory. Let me put it very simply. It says every being has got numerous births, and karma theory is mostly an Indic religion philosophy. That means many of the religions who have sprouted from India, Hinduism, Buddhism, and many more. In fact, it goes back to the ancient Hindu philosophy, Vedic philosophy. In the Purba Mimamsa, one of the school of thoughts in the Vedas, where they elaborate on the karma theory, which says that you accumulate impressions. Karma is about accumulating impressions from different births. Because of your action, every action draws some impression, and that impression is accumulated and stored in this subtle body. They talk about three bodies: the gross body, physical body, and then they talk about something called the subtle body. And the third kind of body is known as the causal body. In Sanskrit they say Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and the Karana Sharira. So these three Shariras are there, and this karma is stored, accumulated in the subtle body, the Sukshma Sharira. So yesterday in the last session also we discussed about these different Shariras, concept of Sharira, wherein that is software. Putting it in the modern parlance, that is software. That means software, as it can be stored in multiple computers. It is in one computer, the entire software can be transmigrated to another. In fact, this is exactly what they use, transmigration. That software, that Sukshma Sarira, can shift to another one, and it is subtle. It is, you cannot touch it, feel it, and you cannot just have, your senses cannot sense them beyond the senses. So subtle Sharira or Sukshma Sharira shifts, transmigrates from one place to the other, which exists without the physical existence of a body or a brain, and that carries impression. In every birth, we accumulate impression in that subtle body, and then it transmigrates. Intermittently, it goes to some place, as already been narrated by Purnima and others, where the karma is stored. The entire karma storage is known as the Sanchita karma. It is the karma of all our births in the previous births, which are stored there. Sanchita. It's been stored, accumulated karma. then we have to, based on that impression, we have to have new births. What is based on that impression? You cannot have all the births karmas at one time and go on living. So you have to collect some of them and come to a new life. It is known as the prarabdha. Prarabdha karma is the one where you collect some of the karma from that entire accumulated storage of karmas, impressions. Because of your actions, behavior, you accumulate impressions. Then you collect some of them and you have to exhaust them. As those are exhausted, again you go back. But as you exhaust through this present life, you also accumulate new karmas known as the agami karma. That means as you work, again you are acting, you are doing something. So you collect some more impressions, go back to that repository, deposit in the sanchita and collect some more as prarabdha, get into another life. So this whole dynamics, again a philosophy, a theory, although this has been researched, how the research has been done, mostly these things, these philosophies are through meditative processes. Through deep meditation, maybe some of the seers, sages, extraordinary, brilliant minds who could fathom this depth, who could go to that depth and figure out what exactly is the mechanism. Not through materialistic science, probably we cannot go in there. Even with materialistic science, we cannot get into the quantum realm. Forget about this conscious realm. Quantum realm also doesn't allow materialistic thing to get in. Someday I would also discuss some of the aspects of quantum mechanics which were told to be crazy by the classical mechanics people. Including Einstein, initially he was saying this is crazy, this cannot be true. Later on he got Nobel Prize in the space of quantum. Similarly, in today's era, when we are talking about consciousness, the material science probably would have huge challenges getting deeper into this. And that's precisely what karma theory says. Through meditations, they said that we accumulate those impressions as karma. We store them in some cloud. You can now, in today's lingo, we can see that cloud storage is there. From that cloud, we collect something, leave our life here, again go back, collect some more, add some more there, and go on living this life. So what does it suggest? What does it actually tells us? It tells us many things. The karma theory, as we call it, is it now time to change our approach to life? Is it now time for us to really see that it is not just something that we have come, materials, money, life, relationships, all those, and suddenly we are dead? Probably it's beyond that. Reality is far beyond that, far stretched, far expansive. And in order to get into that, it's not the materials which can take us there. It's the spiritual aspect which probably can take us there. When we say spiritual, it's not even ritualistic, like I just go and do puja and do parikramas and all. It is more of bringing our inner consciousness so still, so calm, so internalized, that can lead us to find out the real depth of life. Probably through that process, we can know much more than what we know through our senses, what we know through our mind and intelligence. Until unless, in fact, many of the researchers, they say that we are blindfolded because of this external glitters, which is kind of deluding us, kind of having some kind of shield in front of us. We cannot see reality. As they term it, Maya. Maya has got two powers, as they say. It has a projection power, it has a veiling power. So one, it vikshepa, it projects. So we see things as if we see a cinema and think it is true. Projected and we feel it is true. But we do not see the screen behind the cinema, that projected light. Because that light is blinding us so much. Somebody who has not seen doesn't know the science behind this, he would feel that this is real. Similarly, they say that the life we are leading now is vikshepa power and avarana power. The two powers of Maya, as they term it. Avarana, that means it veils, it holds something before us so that we cannot see reality. Only we can penetrate that with the power of internalization, spirituality, and meditation. So that thing what we need, and that can come when we are more kind, more compassionate, more forgiving, and more loving to the existence, because those are the qualities of divine. More and more we get to that space when we start flooded with love. That's the state when we can go deeper into ourselves and explore into the reality that we are. So I thought I would share this. How was the session? How did you like this? Just give me few comments. How was the overall thought? How you loved the session? If you can mention few words, that would be precious for me. And if you liked the session, please do like the video. And if you have not subscribed as of now, I would urge you to subscribe, because those are the things which can help these things to go to more and more people, because that's how the YouTube algorithm works. More likes and more subscription, it can send to more and more people. So just if you can mention how was the session, how did you like it, and how was the overall feeling, experience of this. Yeah. So after the live session is over, also do suggest in the comments about how and what you would like to know about more and more on these fields. Gita talks about rebirth and reincarnation. True. In fact, reincarnation is a word which is here synonymously used. It's not the same. The reincarnation again, it's not used in the same term. It's just for rebirth we have used it. Yeah. So thank you very much for all your wonderful comments, and I also would love to have your comments about future sessions. What would you like to know? What are the things that probably we can practice? How we can bring this to more and more people and make it something that at least we change our approach to life, start loving, start becoming more compassionate, kind, forgiving to others. That can help the world to flourish and grow and consciousness to evolve. Thank you very much, and look forward to more sessions. Tomorrow again we'll connect at 8 p.m. and we will discuss about one more fascinating aspect. This series, as we are going for the aspect of spirituality and parapsychology, consciousness studies. So we are focusing on aspects which are beyond the realm of body and mind. Thank you very much. May God bless all of us, and let's thrive. Let's also see that our consciousness evolves and everyone around us becomes happy. Thank you very much. God bless.